Hello, everyone. Good evening. It is nighttime and it is day 5. We're going to be talking about the moon and the lunar phase that you were born under. So, if you are just joining us, be sure to watch the previous tutorials in the 12 Days of Astro Tools videos and get caught up so that we can dive into the example chart Scorpius, their moon, as well as moon phase. So for those of you who are ready to proceed, we've already looked at Scorpius's day chart, and we've talked about their Scorpio sun in the 11th house. And now we are going to be looking at their moon, which when we look at a chart is very much the soul. It is like where our mind lives. It is where our intellect lives. It is the nourishment that we need to function. And it's how we can feel emotionally fulfilled, mentally fulfilled, and also this concept of like belonging. The moon sort of speaks to, okay, the job I have is to take care of myself. And how that happens, the sort of environment that happens in for Scorpius is in that sun-ruled Leo sign. And the space that they can take and the space that they can take for themselves. And we're going to be talking about the lunar phase, which is, of course, the point of the life cycle of the moon that was experienced at the time that Scorpius was born. And the way that one of my astrology teachers defined it is like the mood lighting of your chart. So we get into like vibes when we talk about the moon. And Scorpius was born under a last quarter moon. And so we've got some themes around that that I would start to talk about in terms of, like how important are service and ritual to you? What is it about like authenticity that you can speak to? And I'd also let them know that the last quarter moon, we have like plant analogies for every major and minor phase of the moon. And that plant analogy at the last quarter is actually that decomposition. So the leaves are drying out on the trees and starting to fall and get trodden on and decompose into the earth. And this is the aspect of a closing square, which is a very Martian aspect in and of itself. And so we're approaching that point of the new moon again. So we've got this closing square that's approaching, like the moon is approaching this like end of life cycle, which means it's a death and a rebirth because it's cyclical. There's no ending. There's no real beginning. It is not a line. So we're thinking in terms of like already spiralic or spherical, circular. Like what are the cycles? What are the patterns that come up in your life? That's where we're going to be talking about the subconscious mind a lot too when we get to the moon and the moon phase. So speaking of the moon phase, just a little bit more here, the last quarter moon is when the light is half there. It's still halfway there on the face of the moon from Earth. We see that beautiful glow, and we see the other half that was in full luminescence is now like back to being enshrouded in darkness. So let's just sit with that notion for a moment. Like, what does it feel like to welcome in the darkness behind you, right? Like, I just thought of, I'm surrounded by candles, admittedly, but I just thought of, holding a lantern with a candle in it and saying, like, okay, I have this much illumination that I can bring to you, bring to this space in front of me or, behind me. But other than that, like the darkness is sort of following me um, as my candle wears low. So that's the kind of energy that we're working with when we've got a last quarter moon. And that's the kind of mood lighting that we can apply to the chart. So speaking of, let's take a look at Scorpius's chart. So here is their moon at 24 degrees in Leo. So once again, I'm like, ooh, we've got a situation. We've got a situation with the sun. So we talked yesterday about how their sun in Scorpio is ruled by Mars, who is in their home territory of Aries. And now we've got a sun ruled moon. So Scorpius's Leo moon is ruled by the sun, who is ruled by Mars. So Mars is becoming a bit of a marionette puppet master in this chart. We're sort of seeing like he's calling a fair few number of the shots here. And not by degree, but by sign, we've got this square 1, 2, 3, 4. So this sign of Leo squares the sign of Scorpio. And let's see, so Leo is the fixed sign, Scorpio is also a fixed sign. That's where we get the squares from when it's modalities. So the modalities match. These are both fixed signs. And the fixed signs have this connection with the esoteric. They have connection with stability. They have this real connection to the centrality, like being that gravitational pull and force. So to have both luminaries sitting at that 90-degree angle from one another, both existing and operating in spaces that are very focused, because that's what fixed signs give us. That's what they allow us. They gift us with stability and commitment. And we get to choose, we get to dial in to what degree. And so I'd probably start talking about like, what does stability look like for you? How much stability do you need? So once you've defined what it is, let's make sure that you know what it feels like to have it. So if this was something that was coming up as like, yeah, I'm still maybe looking for a means of providing for myself, especially with this moon being in the 8th house, it really makes me wonder, and I would like to ask when we were in consultation, is there any sense of like nurturing others somehow nurtures you? And is there like this idea of a pride of lionesses and lions who, are maybe going on that dark rising moonlit hunt? Who is your pride, and how do they fulfill you? How do they sustain you? How does being part of that, at least on a cyclical level, how does that manifest in your life? Is this a positive thing? Is this something that you're looking to make more time for? So, most of the chat about the chart is just that. It's this collaboration. It's okay, like these are the kind of themes and archetypes that show up in your chart. When we start sort of picking up different pieces, we can say, okay, there have been these patterns, there have been these different experiences that, all get kind of categorized together, and it's time to make sense of them. So it would be so fun to hear what this angle is creating on that cyclical agenda for our pal Scorpius, fake name, real person. And if you're interested in working together, this is the kind of detail, this is the kind of exploration that we can get into with your chart. And I am never suggesting anything to assign it to you, assign it to anybody. It's very much a offering and a questioning, like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what does this make you feel? Is this something that excites you, or is this something that you want less of in your life? And we start to see the patterns emerge. We start to understand that there are things sort of happening on autopilot in our lives, and that's okay. That's absolutely how our brain functions. And yet we can notice these autopilot moments and say, I'm actually not really happy with this maintaining in my life. I have the awareness, I have the power to start interrogating those old autopilot codes, those old instructions. And I'm ready to, thank that part of me that was on autopilot for creating safe pathways that I didn't have to think extra about. And now I'm ready to take more knowledge, take more understanding, take more storytelling and creativity to my healing journey, to my self-care journey, and be able to work with feelings that come up and accept them and feel them and know that I'm safe in them. That's really what we're looking to get to the bottom of when we're talking about the moon in your chart, and when we talk about self-care, concepts of self-care. And it's a big reason that we would get together for a 90-minute consultation. This idea that this is a safe space for you to question, look back on, praise, think, interrogate, be grateful for the ways in which you kept yourself safe, kept yourself going. And recognizing that we don't need to carry every single autopilot instruction manual with us as we grow, as we move forward. So that is the moon, as well as the lunar phase for Scorpius, fake name, real person. And I cannot wait to dive into the next part of the chart on day 6. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.